Justine, thank you so much for joining us on our summit.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to reconnect and see you again here and participate.
Yes, I know we met when I was a guest on your podcast, and it's always fun when things come back around and we continue to work together.
I love that. And I love what you're doing. And I was just thinking, wow, I got to get some more of those vitaminis.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, just to get started, for those people on the summit who don't know who you are, your background, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, how you got into this space?
Okay, so my name is Justine Reichman. I have a company called Next Gen Purpose and a company called NGP Studio. And NGP Studio creates content around food so that anybody building a better for you food business or wanting to make better choices for themselves knows where they can get vetted information to make more informed choices.
I love that.
That is. And we have a podcast that is produced by NGP Studio where we bring on guests like Leslie that are building their better for you food business to share insights, what's working, what's not, what inspired them, so that we can also inspire others to create and build impactful and better for you food businesses.
That's awesome. And how did you get into that space? Like, what brought you to that?
So, I've always loved food ever since I could chew. And when I was little, my mom and dad would introduce me to all sorts of things. But what I always heard in the back of my head was my mom telling me, oh, Justine, you can't have dairy. That doesn't make you feel well. That's going to make you congested. And, oh, you can't have, whatever it is. Telling my grandfather, no tomatoes. You have, that's going to give you inflammation for your arthritis. And I just kept hearing all these things. And equally, I tended to get kind of nauseous every time I ate. So I would stop eating certain things just because they didn't make me feel good. And I ended up not eating pasta, and I don't eat mayonnaise, tuna fish, and I don't eat all sorts of things. But it really came through to that and then developed into, well, my mom's going to the organic store. And in the 80s, that was really very, what do you want to call it? She was ahead of her time, right?
Woo-woo.
It was a little woo-woo back then. But so, I got really exposed to the foods that I was putting in my body. Like when I was a little kid and my mom would say, you go to the grocery store, I'd go and I'd look at the apple juices and see which has less sugar.
Wow, you were ahead of your time.
So in any event, we'll fast forward. I'd been an entrepreneur before and I'd work in a variety of different fields, including in my family business, my mom's business, which was then acquired. And when we were living in Mexico City and, I couldn't really work, I, came across some people and one thing led to another. And I ended up working with an NGO that provided resources for people that were lower income to grow their own produce so that they could be both self-sustaining, but also have revenue to pay for everything. And I met them through a relationship, somebody I met literally while I was getting my hair done, who introduced me to the president of Capital Grill and it's a franchise. So introduced me to this guy, and he was the one that worked with this NGO and brought me on. And from there, came back to California and wanted to figure out how I could reinvent this business where I was helping people that were, trying to build better for you food businesses, not just in the lower income sector, but as a global conversation to create greater access to healthy food.
Very interesting. So I do think you were ahead of your time. This whole idea of not just drinking a drink or eating a food just because, but actually like looking into what is it going to do for me? What is it made out of? What benefits or drawbacks do those ingredients give? It sounds like you grew up that way.
I did. I mean, I was the kid where my mom would give me the rice puff and my dad would give me the rice puff cereals from the natural food store, and they had no taste. Zero taste, right? Or I'd be eating muesli, and instead of milk, because my mom said dairy wasn't good for me, how many people do you know that eat muesli with apple cider? Yes, I think that was, it was about being healthy and just staying in tune with what we thought felt good and what was good. But my mom was really ahead of her time.
So what are your thoughts with regards to healthy, holistic lifestyle, weight management, which is kind of the topic of our summit, given that you're focused on ingredients and foods? Tell us what your philosophy is.
So first of all, my father said this to me as a little girl, everything in moderation, and I believe it's true. And I believe it's true because if we deny ourselves everything, we start to crave things. And if we crave them, then we start to eat a lot more of them. But if you take that craving when you have it and you have, a small piece of chocolate, something just to, sort of squash that, desire to have it, then I think that you just don't crave those things that much and you don't have to eat them as much. And they become something that is not a bad thing, because so often we look at these things as bad, but something you give yourself as a treat, right? And because I do that, I don't feel like I'm denying myself. And I have a good view on food. And so my philosophy is it's all really about the ingredients, whether you're making it or buying it from the store, whether it's, a bottle of tomato sauce, or if it's how you're making it, and understanding the ingredients you're using, because the better the ingredients, the healthier we are.
Yeah, it's like garbage in, garbage out for your food and your body.
It's true, right? And I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there and lack of education around how to make those choices. And again, it's individual, because what might be right for me may not be right for you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm definitely seeing a theme in the summit around balance, instead of being like really restrictive or like vilifying certain things, or like, whatever. It's like everything in moderation, like you said, and really like listen to your body and what it needs. So
I would also say, I would just add one thing to that is
yeah.
like, I also think that people don't stop when they're full.
Mm.
Like they really like it, so they just want to keep eating. And I get that. But I also feel a lot better with a lot of different foods that I didn't actually think were good for me when I stop when I'm full.
Yes, like that mindfulness of like noticing when you've had enough.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's actually a topic came up on a prior summit around, if you're eating while you're watching TV or doing things, you may not be like fully paying attention. Or if you're just really stressed, just take a moment, be in the moment, and then you'll have a better idea of when your body's giving you signals that you've had enough of whatever you're eating.
I also think that, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but we get so busy and we forget to eat. And then all of a sudden we're starving. And so we're grasping for anything we can get our hands on. And we're eating it and chewing, kind of chewing it, and it's going down, and we just keep eating more. And so, I try in those times to really just keep something by me so that I don't get to that point. Because when you get to that point, you take in whatever you can find. It may or may not be good for you. You barely chew. It's not good not to chew, right? And you eat all these things that really are not supporting your body. They're just you're just desperate.
Yeah, that's funny. Chewing came up on another one. It's so basic, but like it is important.
And slowly, I might add,
yeah,
take a minute
and savor it. So on the ingredient side, are there particular ingredients that overall you would recommend people to look for, or is it truly individual on everything?
Well, I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, if I make a coffee in the morning and I'm not really great with dairy, I look at some of the other milk alternatives. And there was a whole conversation around oat milk and whether or not it's good for you and all these different things that we're seeing. My biggest challenge is the additional items that they're putting in those alternative milks, right? So I like to look at those and say, okay, which one just has the oat, the salt, and the water, as opposed to the oats, the salt, the water, and the gums. So for me, I don't love having gums in my milk. I don't think it's necessary. So I think that, I think there's a couple things that people can look out for like that. And, transparency is so important these days. More and more people are being transparent about their products. And I think it's our, responsibility to then make an informed choice, because we can look, the information is being given to us.
Yeah, everyone can do their part, right? Companies give the information and be transparent, and then the consumer has to be somewhat educated to know what they're looking at and what to look for.
And also, I don't want gums, right? That's a choice I make. I don't think they're great, so I would prefer not to have them. So I look for another alternative, but it's a choice. If maybe I can't find one in oat, I might find one in hemp, and I'll make that adjustment for myself. So I think people can pick and choose, and I don't think we need to be so strict that we can't buy anything at the store. I think it's just about making an informed choice and picking and choosing.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So again, it's not a blanket thing, but just being informed about what it is. And then back to your moderation thing, you can decide. I love the idea of, I call it no mystery ingredients, but like, especially when we were formulating vitamin E's, only putting in what's necessary and not a lot of other stuff. And especially nothing that you're not really sure what it is, or is it a food, or is it a chemical, that kind of thing we avoid completely. So I really agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think it's a choice that people have to make, and it presents its own set of challenges, whether it's around, can it be what's the shelf life and shelf
Mhm.
life. Wow, that's a
Yes.
little bit of a tongue twister. There's different things that come up for people, and people have to be able to figure out what they're trying to build. And I respect that, and I recognize that. So not every product is going to be for everyone.
Yes. And I love that you're working with small businesses. One of the inspirations for me of even starting a business is I do believe that small businesses are what is going to change our food system. And small businesses are able to do things differently. They're able to question the norms and, start something from scratch. And then as it becomes big, it will then start to impact more people. So I think what you're doing with working with small businesses is great because that's where the change will happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think it's important to bring on different people from the whole supply chain and all
Mhm.
the resources, because we're talking to, an audience that is of other founders or people that are looking to invest or people looking to just be, healthy for themselves to make more informed changes. So we want to be able to give them the full, the full, what's the word I'm looking for? The full spectrum,
Yes.
and both the small and the 50-foot view, the 30-foot view, and also the view from right here, what we all see.
And what sorts of challenges do you find that founders are facing with trying to change these types of things?
I think that some of it is around supply chain when we're talking about smaller businesses and we're talking about getting in there and wanting to be organic, or when they pull in to want to be these little things, it creates additional challenges. Not that they're not good obstacles or obstacles that should be evolved, but I think founders don't necessarily need to do everything in their first minutes. I think you can start small, you can figure out what's important to you, and then as you evolve and as you grow, you can take on some new certifications and you can, try to be sustainable. I think it's figuring out where you are. Am I about sustainability? Am I about transparency? Because you don't need to be about everything in that first run.
I am so glad you said that because that has been my experience too, is like you envision the perfect product and you want to make that because you're like, well, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. But it is a journey. And I think that applies in general to being an entrepreneur. Is you're never going to, first of all, perfection doesn't exist, but it is very incremental. Try this, adjust that, tweak this, and etc. And I know for vitamin E's, for example, we have adjusted along the way. I have identified like which certifications are the most important to people and which aren't. So our product is non-GMO, and that's something that a lot of people care a lot about, especially because our gut health has corn fiber in it, soluble corn fiber. And so consumers want to know, is it non-GMO corn? So
Right.
that is one that I will try to get. But if I had tried to get all the certifications right up front, it would have been totally overwhelming, expensive, and I would have never gotten out the door.
Right, exactly. So I think that's why, as I said, it's really about figuring out what are you after, what is your objective in this moment.
Yes, I love that.
And then you create your short and long-term goals. Ultimately, I want to be all these things, and that's amazing. And it's important to have those goals, but it's important to also recognize all the goals that you reach on the way, because they're milestones, they're important, and they're helping you get, all the way there.
So do you envision, like, as a society, we're moving closer to being easier to be healthier, to have sustainable weight management, to live better? Like, do you see this moving in a positive direction?
I think it's a little bit scary in the world right now, right? Let's just, it is what it is. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to create a better environment, to create better food, to go back to the way things were a really long time ago. But I think it's going to take education, patience, time,
Yeah.
and a compliance. And I think the other thing is that there's so many things that need to be done, and they're not our everyday kind of things. They're not something that we routinely do. So we need to get comfortable with them. And I think we need to start with one thing at a time. And if we could start with one thing at a time and then we can add on more, that's great. But everybody needs to recognize their success in a positive way and not think of themselves as failures if they can't get it all done in the first try. It's a lot.
Exactly what we were just talking about with the entrepreneurial journey too.
Yeah, totally.
So can you give some examples of that when it comes to like healthy eating? Like when you say that, what kinds of things are coming to mind?
So, for example, I mean, in the morning, I have this matcha smoothie, right? And I love it. And it became something that I just do every day. And, originally I was going out for it and I was like, okay, $20 a day for this smoothie? Like that's ridiculous. Like I can make this at home, get some coconut meat, get a little hemp milk, and I can make it for myself. And if you find something you really like that you go out for, by doing it in your house, you get more control over the ingredients and you create it for yourself. And it becomes fun too. Like, you get to share that with your friends. You might even offer to your friends. You might create new things. So for me, where breakfast was a challenge because I'm intolerant to eggs and gluten and a whole host of things, I started to skip breakfast unless I had a steak left over from the night before. So this is the way that it works for me now. I found something, I make it at home now, and I'm super excited about it. So I think, it's really personal to people, but I think the more we can bring things at home, we have more control in them. And I think that that's really important. Doesn't mean we shouldn't go out. I love to go out. But I just think that one path to getting healthy is spending more time in the home eating.
Got it. And it doesn't mean you have to make everything either, right? You pick that thing. And I love the idea of celebrating small incremental progress and layering on. And it's funny, that was one of the inspirations with Vitaminies is it can be so hard and overwhelming to think about trying to get everything, all of your nutritional needs met from whole foods or juicing everything or whatever. So Vitaminies is purpose is to make it a little easier to just get a little bit more nutrition into your diet. So I completely resonate with that. It doesn't mean you have to do it every day. We get this question a lot. People say, do I have to take both vitamin E shots every day? And it's like, no, you don't. Maybe some business people would say, yes, you do. But the reality is like my goal is to make it easy and convenient for you. So maybe one day you do have a lot of veggies or you feel like you got all your nutritional needs met. And then another day you feel like you really didn't and you need a boost, or maybe you're dealing with an ailment. So it's there as another resource as opposed to like a rigid thing that you have to comply with.
I think of it as a great resource also for travel.
Yeah.
So when you're get on a plane or you just want a little bit of a boost or you're going to some large events, it's just a nice way to be able to boost your immune system.
Absolutely. And we are less than 3 ounces. So we can go through TSA, you can put it in your purse, your carry-on bag. No, you're absolutely right. Because like you said, even if we do try to prepare as many of our foods as we can, you can't always do it. It's not always going to be.
And there are solutions, like there's a company called Thistle that makes really nice plant-forward food with really great ingredients. So there are options out there for people that are busy, because I know that, one chief complaint is that I just don't have the time. I've got the kids, I've got the business, I'm running around. So I think that it's also about managing how you expect to do this. You don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to make everything yourself. You can bring things in from a company like Thistle, which allows you to eat a nice healthy meal with a transparent, list of ingredients. So I think that, we have to give ourselves a little bit of a break, make it fun, but incorporating more food at home allows us to have more control.
Yes, definitely. It's funny you said don't have the time. We had a speaker in a previous summit who said, we all have the same time in a day. So instead of saying I don't have the time, you can say to yourself, this is not a priority. I'm gonna choose this over that. And that's okay. And if you want to change and prioritize the other thing, you totally can.
I actually think that's a really nice way of putting it. I mean,
it's empowering because it's your choice,
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we had a lot of inspiration around the foods and ingredients. Hopefully all of our listeners will start to just think and listen to their body, think about what works and what doesn't, and really start to look at the foods they're making and consuming and how it's affecting them. So I think you provided a lot of great inspiration there. And thank you for all the work you do with startups to help improve the food system.
I really love what I do. So I feel really grateful to meet founders like yourself that are spearheading a change in the food system and giving people greater access to better products.
Awesome. And where can people find you if they're interested in hearing your podcast, learning more about you?
So our website is nextgenpurpose.com, and our podcast is called Essential Ingredients. And you can listen to that wherever you listen to podcasts, on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And if you prefer a video cast, you can find us on YouTube. So give me a note if you like any of the episodes or you have any questions. I do look at all the comments on Instagram on essential.ingredients, and we'll write back.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justine. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.